The arrival. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council hummed with the ambient sounds of 500 different species in attendance. High Chancellor Vrith stood at the central podium, her crystalline exoskeleton refracting light in prismatic patterns across the cavernous chamber. Her 6 limbs moved in practiced gestures as she addressed the gathered representatives of the most advanced civilizations in the Orion Arm. Esteemed delegates, Vrith's voice resonated through neural translators. Today we finalize trade agreements for the Cygnus Corridor. The merchant guilds of Sector 7 have petitioned for reduced tariffs on rare minerals and... A sharp, wailing alarm cut through her speech. The hall's ambient lighting shifted from serene blue to urgent red. Many delegates recoiled instinctively. Some of the aquatic species submerged deeper into their suspension tanks, while gaseous entities condensed into defensive formations. Security breach, announced the Council's AI Nexus, its holographic form materializing above the central floor. Unknown vessel has entered restricted space. Configuration matches no known species in database. Chancellor Vrith maintained composure, though her exoskeleton darkened with concern. Display vessel. The massive holographic display at the center of the hall flickered to life, showing a sleek, angular ship unlike any in Council records. Its hull was matte black with minimal external features save for what were clearly weapon ports along its flanks. Most striking were the bold white markings on its side. TFs, DEFINT. Magnify markings, ordered Commander Zix, the Council's security chief, his reptilian scales shifting from green to alert orange. The image zoomed in on a smaller insignia beneath the ship's name, a stylized image of a blue and green planet surrounded by stars, with the letters TF emblazoned across it. Terran Federation, whispered Councillor Thrak, the normally stoic hive mind representative of the Vespid Collective. Humans. A wave of murmurs swept through the assembly. Humanity was known to the Council, of course, a young volatile species that had achieved faster-than-light travel barely a century ago. They were classified as a Level 3 civilization, technologically competent but culturally unpredictable, still centuries from Council membership consideration. Their trading vessels occasionally visited neutral ports, but they had never ventured into the heart of Council space, and they had certainly never sent a warship. The vessel is initiating communication, announced the Nexus. Chancellor Vrith's crystalline limbs clicked together in deliberation. This moment may define our relationship with humanity for centuries to come. Establish connection, but activate defensive protocols. The central hologram shifted, and standing before the entire Galactic Council was a human female in a dark uniform adorned with insignia unfamiliar to the delegates. Her skin was brown, her black hair pulled back tightly, and her stance unmistakably military. But it was her eyes that caught Vrith's attention. They held a determination that made even the 1,000-year-old Chancellor feel suddenly young and uncertain. Greetings, Galactic Council, the human spoke, her voice steady and confident. I am Captain Ilara Chen of the Terran Federation, ship Defiant. We come with urgent information that concerns the security of all sentient life in this sector of the galaxy. Chancellor Vrith moved forward, her crystalline form catching the light. Captain Chen, I am High Chancellor Vrith. Your unexpected arrival, particularly in a vessel clearly designed for combat, has caused considerable alarm among the Council. Explain your presence immediately. Captain Chen nodded. I understand your concern, Chancellor. The Defiant is indeed a battleship, but we come as messengers, not conquerors. My government has detected a threat approaching the Orion Arm, one that will affect all Council worlds as well as Earth. We need to address your full assembly immediately. From the Vespid delegation, Councillor Thrak's composite voice buzzed with suspicion. And you brought weapons to deliver this message. We brought weapons, Chen replied evenly, because what's coming will require them. Chancellor, we request permission to dock and present our findings directly to the Council. The hall erupted in conflicting voices. Several delegates demanded the human vessel be expelled immediately. Others called for its destruction as a precaution. A smaller faction urged caution and diplomacy. Amidst the chaos, an elder delegate rose slowly from his gravity pod. The chamber immediately fell silent. Councillor Xanthar, representative of the ancient Draconid Empire, was the oldest being present, rumored to be over 4,000 years old. His scaled face showed the weight of millennia as he fixed his gaze on the human captain. In my long memory, Xanthar's deep voice resonated through the hall. I have witnessed 17 species make first contact with the Council. 12 brought gifts. 5 brought scientific discoveries. His ancient eyes narrowed. None brought warships. Captain Chen met his gaze unflinchingly. With respect, Counselor, perhaps that's why those 17 species needed the Council's protection, while we've come offering ours. Gasps echoed through the chamber at such boldness. Xanthar's scales flared momentarily before he settled back into his gravity pod, his expression unreadable. Chancellor Vrith raised all 6 limbs for silence. Captain Chen, your request to address the Council is unprecedented. Before we can consider it, we require more information. What exactly is this threat you claim to have identified? Chen hesitated, then touched a control on her wrist. The holographic display beside her changed to show what appeared to be astronomical data. We call them the Void. They're not a species as you would understand it, but a collective consciousness that consumes technology and organic matter alike. They've already destroyed 3 of our outer colonies. The display showed grainy footage of darkness sweeping over a settlement on an arid world. Buildings, vehicles, and tragically, people seem to dissolve into the advancing shadow. They're drawn to energy signatures, Chen continued. The higher the technology, the more strongly they're attracted. Your council worlds shine like beacons to them. Councillor Furia of the Lumidian Conclave floated forward, her luminescent form pulsing with concern. If what you say is true, why have our long-range sensors detected nothing? Because you're looking for ships, signals, radiation, Chen replied. The Void doesn't travel like conventional matter. They exist partially in subspace. They're visible only when they begin to manifest in our reality to feed. Security Chief Zix stepped forward, his scales now deep crimson. Chancellor, this could be an elaborate deception, a pretext for human expansion into Council space. To what end? Chen challenged. Earth has no territorial ambitions in this sector. We have 3 habitable systems in our own space we haven't fully colonized yet. Then why send a warship? Xanthar demanded, his ancient voice cutting through the chamber once more. Chen's expression hardened. Because we fought them and survived. None of your species has. The stunned silence that followed was broken by Chancellor Vrith. Captain, if your intentions are as you claim, would you be willing to power down your vessel's weapon systems and submit to a Council security inspection? Our weapons, yes, Chen nodded. But certain areas of the ship must remain secured. We're prepared to share technical specifications and allow your experts to verify our claims about the Void, but some of our technology is classified. Xanthar's laugh was like stone grinding against stone. The arrogance. They come uninvited, claim a mysterious threat exists, and then dictate terms to the Council. Not terms, Chen replied calmly. Boundaries, just as we respect yours. Chancellor Vrith conferred briefly with her security advisors before addressing the human again. Captain Chen, we will allow a delegation from your vessel to address the Council. Your ship must maintain its current position and accept a security escort. You may bring 3 representatives and whatever evidence you have of this Void threat. Chen nodded. Agreed. We'll prepare immediately. As the transmission ended, the Council erupted in debate once more. Chancellor Vrith called for order, her crystalline form glowing intensely. Delegates of the Council, I understand your concerns. But if there is even a possibility that Captain Chen speaks the truth, we must hear them out. Security will be maximized, and no binding decisions will be made without full consultation. 3 hours later, The council chamber had been reconfigured for the human delegation. Captain Chen entered flanked by two officers. A tall, pale human male introduced as Commander Alexei Volkov, tactical officer, and a shorter female with auburn hair named Dr. Sophia Reyes, chief science officer. They carried no visible weapons, but their confident strides and alert eyes spoke of military training. Several council security drones hovered nearby, scanning continuously. Chancellor Vrith formally opened the session. Captain Chen, you have the floor to present your evidence regarding this void threat. Chen nodded to Dr. Reyes, who activated a sophisticated holographic projector. The lights in the chamber dimmed as a three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with several sectors highlighted in red. 3 standard months ago, Chen began, our outermost research station in the Ta-CD system went dark. Initial investigation revealed this. The hologram shifted to show surveillance footage of a space station. At first, everything appeared normal, but then shadows began to coalesce around the structure. Not like ships or solid objects, more like living darkness that flowed and pulsed with purpose. Within minutes, entire sections of the station had vanished, seemingly absorbed into the darkness. We lost 412 people. Chen continued, her voice steady, but tinged with barely controlled anger. By the time our nearest vessel responded, there was nothing left but debris. 2 weeks later, it happened again at our colony on Proxima Centauri B. 2,000 lives lost. Councillor Furia's luminescent form dimmed with distress. How do you know it will come here? Commander Volkov stepped forward. Because they follow specific patterns of movement. After studying their trajectory and behavior, we've determined they're drawn to concentrations of advanced technology. The Council core worlds represent the highest density of such technology in this sector. Xanthar's ancient eyes narrowed skeptically. And yet you humans, with your primitive technology, have managed to fight these creatures when even we know nothing of them. Chen nodded to Dr. Reyes, who touched the projector controls again. The hologram shifted to display a sleek device approximately the size of a human forearm. This is what we call the resonance disruptor, Chen explained. It emits a specific frequency that destabilizes the void's cohesion, forcing them back into subspace temporarily. It's not a permanent solution, but it's given us time to develop more effective countermeasures. The council scientists present leaned forward with obvious interest. This technology was unlike anything in their considerable arsenals. Impossible, declared Xanthar. Your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. You expect us to believe you've developed technology that eludes even the Draconid Empire. Commander Volkov smiled thinly. Sometimes, Counselor, necessity drives innovation more effectively than millennia of comfortable existence. Before Xanthar could respond, Chen raised her hand. We didn't come to debate technological superiority. We came because the void is approaching council space. Based on their movement patterns, we estimate you have less than 60 days before the first attack. Chancellor Vrith's crystalline structure darkened with concern. And what do you propose, Captain? Alliance, Chen stated simply. The Defiant is just one ship, but it's equipped with our latest defensive systems. We're prepared to share this technology and train your forces to combat the void. In return, we ask for council resources to mass-produce these defenses. The council chamber hushed as the delegates processed this proposal. It was unprecedented. The mighty Galactic Council, which had ruled the stars for millennia, being asked to ally with a young, unproven species. As the debate began to swell again, Dr. Reyes stepped forward. Perhaps a demonstration would help resolve doubts. She placed the resonance disruptor on the floor of the chamber and activated it. Nothing happened for a moment. Then a low hum filled the air. Delegates with more sensitive hearing winced slightly. This is operating at minimal power, Reyes explained. But it's enough to show you what we're dealing with. To everyone's shock, small patches of darkness began to materialize throughout the chamber, not from the holographic projector, but in the actual air. The shadows writhed and twisted as if in pain, trying to maintain cohesion but failing against the disruptor's influence. They're already here, Chen said quietly as gasps echoed through the hall. Scout fragments, too small to cause damage yet, but gathering intelligence. This is how they operate, infiltration before the main consciousness arrives. Chancellor Vrith's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. This is, within our council chamber. How did our security not detect them? Because you weren't looking for them, Commander Volkov replied. Your sensors are calibrated for matter and energy as you understand them. The void exists partially in dimensions your science hasn't fully explored. As Dr. Rice deactivated the device, the shadow fragments quickly dissipated. The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Security Chief Zix ordered immediate scans using modified parameters based on what they'd just witnessed. In the midst of the chaos, Sanfar rose again from his gravity pod, his ancient eyes fixed on Captain Chen with a new expression, not quite respect, but recognition. It seems, human, that you have given us much to consider, the ancient counselor admitted reluctantly. Perhaps your worship's arrival was timely after all. Chancellor Vrith raised her limbs for silence. This session will recess for 12 hours while our scientists verify the humans' claims and technology. Captain Chen, your delegation will remain as our guests. We will reconvene to discuss potential cooperation against this threat. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many casting wary glances at the humans, Chen approached Chancellor Vrith privately. Chancellor, I appreciate your willingness to listen, but I must emphasize the urgency. The void doesn't negotiate or show mercy. When they come, and they will come, this council must be ready. Vrith studied the human captain for a long moment. In 10,000 years of council history, Captain Chen, we have never faced extinction. Your arrival has changed that. I only hope you've brought salvation along with this terrible knowledge. Chen's eyes reflected grim determination. That, Chancellor, will depend on how quickly your council can overcome its fear, not of us, but of change. As the humans were escorted to their assigned quarters, security feeds captured countless urgent conversations among the delegates. The Galactic Council, which had stood uncontested for millennia, now faced two unprecedented situations: the threat it couldn't comprehend, and a young species offering protection it hadn't realized it needed. The balance of power in the galaxy had begun to shift, and at the center of it all was a single human battleship named Defiant. The Alliance. The 12-hour recess granted by Chancellor Vrith stretched to 18 as the Council's scientists worked frantically to verify the humans' claims. During this time, the Defiant maintained its position under heavy surveillance, while Captain Chen's delegation remained in their assigned quarters within the Council's diplomatic wing. When the Council finally reconvened, the chamber was noticeably tenser. Several smaller delegations had departed to warn their homeworlds, while others had called for reinforcements. The once orderly assembly now had the sharp edge of barely contained panic. Chancellor Vrith's crystalline form glimmered with subdued colors as she called the session to order. Esteemed delegates, our scientific corps has completed its preliminary analysis of the human data and technology. She nodded to Chief Scientist Mailer, an ancient cerebrid whose massive brain was housed in a hovering life support pod. The cerebrids were renowned as the Council's premier scientific minds, having evolved beyond physical forms to exist as nearly pure intellect. Our findings are troubling. Mailer's telepathic voice resonated directly in the minds of all present. We can confirm that the phenomenon humans call the void is real. Furthermore, our deep space monitoring stations have detected subspace anomalies matching their description, approaching from the direction of human space. Displays throughout the chamber showed ominous readings, dark patches moving through the starscape like ink through water. The human technology, Mailer continued, particularly their resonance disruptor, operates on principles that are unexpected. It manipulates dimensional boundaries in ways our science has theorized but never successfully implemented. Fanfar's ancient scaled form shifted forward. Are you suggesting, Scientist Mailer, that human technology is superior to ours in this specific area? Not superior, Mailer corrected diplomatically. Different. They approached the problem from angles our science never explored. Their shorter scientific history means fewer established doctrines to overcome. Captain Chen, who had been silently observing from the delegation area, stepped forward when acknowledged by the Chancellor. If I may add context to Scientist Mailer's observations. The Chancellor nodded her assent. Humanity's scientific development has been shaped by existential threats, Chen explained. While the Council has enjoyed millennia of relative stability, Earth's history is marked by catastrophes that nearly wiped us out. We've developed a particular talent for survival innovation. Security Chief Zix's scales rippled with suspicion. Convenient that this threat appeared just as your species developed the means to fight it. Commander Volkov stepped beside his captain. Not convenient, Chief Zix. Necessary. The void first appeared in our space shortly after we activated our experimental dimensional fold drive. We believe our tests inadvertently created a breach that allowed them access to our universe. This admission sent a new wave of murmurs through the chamber. Several delegates pointed accusatory appendages toward the humans. You created this threat. Councillor Thrax's composite voice buzzed angrily. Unintentionally, Dr. Reyes interjected, stepping forward. But we've taken responsibility for stopping it. That's why we're here. Chancellor Vrith raised her limbs for silence. The origin of the threat is secondary to our response to it. The question before this council is whether to accept human assistance and technology. Xanthar rose from his gravity pod, his ancient frame commanding immediate attention. Before we decide, I wish to understand precisely what the humans are offering. Captain Chen speaks of alliance. But what does that entail? All eyes turned to the human delegation. Captain Chen took a deep breath before responding. The Terran Federation proposes a mutual defense pact. We will provide the technical specifications for the resonance disruptor and assist in its mass production. The Defiant will remain in Council space to coordinate defense efforts and train your forces in combat tactics against the Void. And in return, Xanthar pressed, recognition of humanity as a Level 5 civilization, with corresponding trade and diplomatic privileges, Chen stated firmly, and guaranteed non-interference in human expansion within our current colonial corridor. The chamber erupted in objections. Level 5 status was reserved for species with at least a millennium of stable interstellar civilization. It would grant humanity voting rights within the Council and access to restricted technologies. Outrageous, exclaimed the Mercantile Guild representative. They leverage our vulnerability to force concessions. Chen's expression hardened. We're not leveraging anything. We're acknowledging reality. This fight will reshape the power structure of this galaxy whether you acknowledge it or not. We're offering you the choice to be our allies rather than bystanders. Chancellor Vrith's crystalline structure darkened with concern. Captain, your proposal would violate centuries of Council protocol. Protocol won't matter much if the Void consumes your worlds, Chancellor, Commander Volkov remarked dryly. Before the debate could intensify further, Security Chief Zix interrupted. Chancellor, I believe we should see this remarkable vessel for ourselves before making any decisions. If the humans are confident in their technology, perhaps they would permit a delegation to tour the Defiant. The request was clearly a challenge, but Chen nodded without hesitation. We would welcome it. Select your representatives, and we can depart immediately. 6 hours later, a council delegation including Chancellor Vrith, Xanthar, Security Chief Zix, and representatives from the major council factions stood in the cavernous hangar bay of the TFS Defiant. Despite its relatively modest size compared to council capital ships, the human vessel's interior revealed sophisticated technology that belied its outer appearance. Our ship is built around 3 core systems, Captain Chen explained as she led them through gleaming corridors. The dimensional defense grid, the adaptive combat intelligence, and the phase shield array. The tour wound through engineering sections where human technicians worked alongside humming equipment. Many components were unfamiliar even to the Council's most knowledgeable engineers. This is our central command center, Chen announced as they entered a circular chamber dominated by holographic displays and control stations. The bridge crew stood at attention, a diverse group of humans working with practiced efficiency. "Impressive," admitted Chief Zix reluctantly, "but hardly revolutionary compared to Council vessels." Commander Volkov smiled thinly. "The revolution isn't in how it looks, Chief Zix. It's in what it can do." He turned to Captain Chen. "With your permission, Captain." Chen nodded. "Proceed with Demonstration Alpha." Volkov addressed the ship's eye. "Defiant, initiate combat simulation. Void encounter Sigma 3. The lights dimmed momentarily before the entire command center transformed. The solid walls seemed to vanish, creating the illusion that they stood in open space. Around them, the void of space was punctuated by stars and a nearby ringed gas giant. "This is a record of our encounter with the void at Proxima Centauri," Chen explained. "Enhanced and mapped to our command center for training purposes." The delegation watched in stunned silence as darkness began to coalesce in the simulated space. Unlike conventional ships or weapons, the void moved like living shadow, flowing, pulsing, consuming everything in its path. "Initial contact," announced Volkov. "Watch our response protocols." In the simulation, the Defiant systems engage. Beams of coruscating energy lanced out from the ship, not to destroy but to contain. The darkness writhed and recoiled as the ship executed a series of maneuvers that seemed to anticipate the void's movements. "Our adaptive combat intelligence analyzes the void's behavior patterns and predicts its next moves," explained Dr. Reyes. "Conventional targeting systems are useless against an enemy that exists partially out of phase with our reality." Chancellor Vrith's crystalline form pulsed with subdued colors. "Your AI can predict this chaos." "Not predict," corrected Reyes. "Learn. Each encounter improves its understanding." The simulation continued, showing how the Defiant deployed a series of resonance buoys that created a containment field around the void manifestation. "Once contained," Chen continued, "we can force it back into subspace using synchronized resonance pulses." The delegation watched as the simulated void entity was compressed and eventually disappeared in a flash of exotic particles. "Banished, but not destroyed," Chen admitted. "We haven't yet found a way to eliminate them permanently, but we can defend against them effectively." As the simulation ended and the command center returned to normal, the delegation stood in contemplative silence. Even Xanfar's ancient features showed a hint of what might have been respect. "You've developed this technology and tactics in just 3 months?" Chancellor Vrith asked incredulously. "Necessity is a powerful motivator," Chen replied simply. "When your species faces extinction, you tend to innovate quickly." The tour continued through various sections of the ship, each revealing aspects of human ingenuity that challenged the Council's preconceptions. The weapons systems, while less powerful than top-tier Council equivalents, showed remarkable adaptability. The shield technology operated on principles that even the cerebrids found novel. As they entered the ship's dimensional research lab, Dr. Rice led the explanation of the resonance disruptor technology. The key breakthrough was understanding that the void exists simultaneously in multiple dimensional states. Traditional weapons affect only their manifestation in our dimension, which is like cutting the tip off a weed while leaving the roots intact. The delegation gathered around a large device that hummed with power, a more sophisticated version of the disruptor demonstrated in the council chamber. "This prototype can create a dimensional barrier approximately 12 kilometers in diameter," Rice explained, "enough to protect a small colony or space station. With council manufacturing capabilities, we could produce hundreds within weeks." Xanfar studied the device with ancient eyes that had witnessed millennia of technological evolution. "Assuming we agree to this alliance, how quickly could our worlds be protected?" "Priority worlds within 30 days, Chen answered. "Complete coverage of all council systems would take approximately 6 months. Security Chief Zix moved closer to the device, his reptilian features unreadable. May I examine it more closely? Of course. Reyes stepped aside. What happened next occurred too quickly for most of the delegation to follow. Chief Zix's hand darted toward a specific component of the disruptor, but before he could touch it, Commander Volkov moved with startling speed. The human officer caught the reptilian's wrist in a grip that stopped it centimeters from the device. That emitter is calibrated at the quantum level, Volkov said calmly, still holding Zix's wrist. Touching it would require a complete recalibration. The security chief's scales flushed deep crimson. You dare lay hands on a council official? I dare prevent an action that could disable our prototype, Volkov replied evenly, releasing Zix's wrist. Intentional or not. The tension in the room was palpable. Chancellor Vrith moved between them, her crystalline form pulsing rapidly. This incident is unfortunate but understandable. Both sides are operating under extreme caution. Captain Chen nodded sharply. Agreed. Perhaps we should conclude the tour and return to the council chamber for further discussion. As they made their way back toward the hangar bay, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Human crew members rushed to stations as emergency lights activated. Captain to bridge, Chen snapped into her communicator. Report. Subspace anomaly detected, Captain, came the immediate response. Void signature confirmed. Small manifestation. But it's growing rapidly. Currently 7 kilometers from the council station. The council delegation froze in shock. The threat had arrived far sooner than predicted. How is this possible? Demanded Chancellor Vrith. Your estimates gave us weeks. Something accelerated their approach, Chen replied grimly. Or someone summoned them. All eyes turned to Security Chief Zix, whose scales had paled to a sickly yellow. I merely sent a probe to verify their claims, he admitted. A standard security protocol. The probe was designed to scan subspace frequencies. You created a beacon, Dr. Reyes whispered in horror. Your probe's emissions would have drawn them like a moth to flame. Captain Chen was already moving. Commander Volkov, escort the delegation to the hangar bay. Return them to the council station immediately. Dr. Reyes, prepare the primary disruptor array. Wait. Chancellor Vrith's voice cut through the chaos. What are you planning, Captain? Chen's expression was resolute. The Defiant will engage the void manifestation and draw it away from the council station. Once at safe distance, we'll force it back into subspace. Your ship against that. Kagjanfar gestured to a nearby display showing the growing darkness. It's suicide. It's what we built this ship for, Chen replied simply. Now please go. We need to move quickly before it grows too large to contain. As the council delegation hurriedly boarded their shuttle, Commander Volkov clasped his captain's shoulder. Standard containment protocol. Chen nodded. By the book. But be ready for improvisation if it's larger than it appears. Within minutes, the council shuttle had departed, and the Defiant was moving to intercept the void manifestation. From the council station, the assembled delegates watched on massive displays as the human vessel, seemingly tiny against the spreading darkness, engaged the threat. The Defiant launched a series of what appeared to be small probes that surrounded the manifestation. Each probe activated, creating a web of energy that contained the darkness. The human ship then began a complex series of maneuvers, firing precisely calibrated energy pulses into the trapped entity. What are they doing? Asked one of the younger delegates. Dimensional resonance cascade, explained Chief Scientist Mailer, who was monitoring the readings. They're forcing it back into subspace by creating a localized dimensional inversion. The procedure continued for nearly an hour, the human ship never relenting in its precise attack pattern. Gradually, the darkness began to compress and fade until, with a final burst of energy from the Defiant, it disappeared completely. A cheer erupted from many of the younger delegates. Even the more reserved council members showed signs of relief. When Captain Chen and her officers returned to the council chamber several hours later, they were met with a decidedly different reception. Gone was the suspicion and hostility, replaced by cautious respect, and in some cases, open admiration. Chancellor Vrith addressed them formally from the central podium. Captain Chen, the Council has witnessed firsthand both the threat you warned us about and your ship's capability to combat it. Security Chief Zix, overzealous security measure has inadvertently confirmed your claims beyond any doubt. Zix stood to one side, his scales still a pale shade of shame. He nodded stiffly to the humans in what appeared to be the reptilian equivalent of an apology. The Council has deliberated during your absence, Frith continued. We are prepared to accept an alliance with the Terran Federation on modified terms. Chen raised an eyebrow. Modified how? We cannot grant immediate Level 5 status. Our laws simply don't permit it, Vrith explained. However, we propose an emergency provisional status that grants equivalent privileges for the duration of this crisis, with a path to permanent status based on the success of our cooperation. Chen exchanged glances with her officers before nodding. That seems reasonable. And our colonial corridor? Recognized and guaranteed, with the stipulation that any worlds already under Council protection remain so. Agreed, Chen replied without hesitation. Xanfar moved forward, his ancient form commanding attention. I must know, Captain, why did you humans come to our aid? Your vessel could have protected your own worlds. You could have left us to our fate. Chen's expression softened slightly. Because isolation is a luxury humanity learned it cannot afford, because the void won't stop with Council space, and because despite our differences, we believe in the possibility of a stronger galaxy through cooperation. The ancient counselor studied her for a long moment before inclining his head in a gesture of respect. Then perhaps there is something to learn from your young species after all. Chancellor Vrith raised her crystalline limbs. Let the record show that on this day, the Galactic Council enters into formal alliance with the Terran Federation against the threat known as the Void. Captain Chen, what do you require to begin implementation of defensive measures? Chen straightened, every inch the commanding officer. Access to your manufacturing facilities, technical liaisons from your major species, and a joint command structure for the defense fleet. Granted, Frith declared. The alliance begins now. As the formal proceedings continued, Commander Volkov leaned closer to his captain. That went better than expected. Fear is a powerful motivator, Chen replied quietly. But so is hope. Dr. Reyes smiled faintly. Do you think they realize yet? Realize what? Volkov asked.